Hey humans, how's it going? Susan Ruth here. Thanks for listening to another episode of Hey Human Podcast. I sat down with David Hall, who very candidly spoke about his life, his family, and events that really changed how he sees himself and the world at large. There are instances in this interview where he speaks of POS. That's how he refers to somebody in this conversation. I don't want to give too much away. I don't like to do that. Needless to say, POS stands for piece of shit, just so you know. We talk about some pretty heavy-duty things. I just want to put it out there. If you or someone you know needs help, is in a domestic violence situation, resources and help can be found by calling 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233. As always, I have a ton of links and resources at heyhumanpodcast.com. The conversation he and I had, he's a very successful music engineer. We start there. We move through discussing how he navigated his own relationship, and then his relationship with drugs and alcohol, and then sobriety, and also then moving on to his family and his children, most specifically his daughter and a relationship that she was in, and all of the chaos around that. So it's a really fascinating story, and I think, unfortunately, it's a not uncommon story. So that being said, please feel free to email me, Susan at heyhumanpodcast.com. Subscribe to Hey Human on iTunes, rate and review. Just keep spreading the word. Thank you for listening. If you wish to support Hey Human, please go to the Amazon portal on the heyhumanpodcast.com website and shop Amazon as you normally would, and it helps support Hey Human, and I really appreciate it. Thank you for listening, and here we go. Hi, David Hall.
Hi, Susan Ruth.
Thanks for being on Hey Human.
Thank you.
It's really good to see you.
When was it? About 2 years ago that we saw each other at Grammy?
I think we had coffee a couple years ago, and then we haven't really seen each other since. We've stayed in contact on the social medias, as people do, but I've known you, I would say since 2006. Is
that when it is?
No, 2007 probably.
Where are you from?
Originally Seattle, or up in space.
Wow.
Part alien, part immortal. That's me.
I always just see you as for some reason, a Midwest, right there in the heartland
Seattle
spot.
Seattle girl.
Funny that we are coming kind of full circle.
Well, hopefully that doesn't mean it's the end.
No,
but
the reason why it's funny to me is we just lost Laurie White.
Yes.
And I remember an incident out at the Holler where it was your dog, wasn't it?
Mikey got attacked by her nanny's, her and Chuck, the nanny's dog, leapt out of the nanny's car, ran down the hill, shoved me out of the way, jumped in the car, and just tore Mikey to shreds. That was probably the single most terrifying moment of my life. Boy, howdy. That was a crazy... And Chuck and Laurie were great about it, and gracious and wonderful. I'm sure they were scared to death, as everybody was.
Yeah.
And Mikey, lived to see another day.
Yep.
But man, what a terrifying moment. I was punching that dog in the face, trying to get her to let go of Mikey.
Yeah.
I nearly broke my hand. They x-rayed it.
What kind of dog was it?
It was a pit bull mix, but I don't want to be disparaging against pit bulls, because I've met some lovely pit bulls, and they do get a bad rap. But I think this dog perhaps may have tasted blood before.
And it was a strong dog.
Very strong.
Whether or not it's a pit bull, it's a strong dog. All those people
to pull. Remember, she had latched onto I almost lost. I still have the scar.
That's right.
I had almost lost my hand. She latched down, and I have the ring still that I would have lost my finger had I not had this big ring, and there's teeth marks in it.
Wow, it disfigured it.
Yeah, and then she bit down on my arm, and I couldn't, because they locked their jaws, and I couldn't, and as you guys were all running down the hill to detach the dog from me, All I could think about, I don't know why this crossed my mind in the moment. I was in total just like save Mikey mode, but all I could think of was sharks and how you're supposed to punch sharks. So I just punched as hard as I could, and it hit her right in the perfect place, and it made her open her mouth. And right as you all got there, and it took a bunch of you to pull her off of me. God, it was so crazy. What a crazy moment.
It's a defining moment for whenever I think of you. I always go back to that, and there's a lot of other things that we've been involved in, but that was one of those that...
It's intense.
I just remember it's vivid.
Yeah.
It's very vivid. And so kind of coming full circle to losing Laurie.
It was a beautiful ceremony. It was, at one moment, I could feel her so much. I just felt her. And it was one of those memorials where, you laugh and you cry and you laugh and you cry, but mostly you cry. And I could feel her, and I looked up, and I swear I saw her looking over the balcony, smiling. It just seemed so vivid in my mind. It was cool.
I'd lost contact with Laurie and Chuck for a while there. I was doing stuff at their studio, and then just how life happens.
Yeah, especially in Nashville.
Yep. And so when I saw that announcement that she went quickly. Was in hospice.
Yeah, from bad to worse rather rapidly.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yep.
What a lovely woman. Just full of all things good.
And talented all the way around.
Oh, ridiculous.
Not just a great artist.
Yeah.
Not just a great...
So anyone listening, Laurie White, go
L-A-R-I.
Yeah, L-A-R-I, White, W-H-I-T-E. She, a powerhouse, actress, singer, producer, engineer, mom, wife, all the things. She was...
And equally strong on all of those.
All fronts.
Yep.
She was about 2 feet tall and weighed about 3 pounds, and you would have thought she was 1,000 pounds and 10 feet tall.
She did command your attention.
Beautiful green sparkly eyes.
That's right.
Yeah. And a big old smile. Mm-hmm. At the end of the movie Castaway, which lots of people have seen that movie with Tom Hanks, she's the redhead that gets out of the truck that helps him with directions at the very end of the movie.
Yep. So, was that the only role?
Scene she's in?
Scene that she's in?
It's not the only role she's ever had. I think that was the only role. That was the scene that she's in the movie.
And that's
but it's
kind
such
of
a major moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was a big movie. Castaway, I think.
It's a huge movie. It won lots of Oscars and things. And
I'm thinking of Sesame. Yeah.
So you're thinking of Sesame Street? Also a very good show.
I've got nothing. If you can see me right now, shaking my head.
I don't think Laurie was on Sesame Street, although she's small enough to have been a Muppet, for sure.
Sorry, Laurie. Allegedly.
Allegedly. An alleged Muppet. I think I just said Moppet, but I meant Muppet. Whatever. It's all good here.
Yeah.
We're among friends.
I guess.
Well, you've had in general, you've had a fascinating life. You're a very important figure in town, very well known as an engineer and music person. That you've been at the board for, as long as I've known you, you've been at the board. And have been a part of a lot of big things in the world of music. And you're also you're sober, you're a recovering addict, and
you've done your research.
Well, I've just known you a long time, but the last couple of why we're here to talk is to talk about your last couple of years, which have been pretty insane.
Kind of have to address. Thank you for acknowledging that. I've been here in Nashville since 1988.
You don't look any different than when I first met you. Like, your face has not changed at all. You've got a little gray in the beard.
Yeah, well, I agree.
But that's it. You look the same.
I've been here since 88, and I went to Belmont. I came here to go to school. And school was never a big thing for me. I came here for the music and the proximity of Belmont to Music Row. Mm-hmm. And so I did just enough to stay at Belmont. My grades were just enough there because I was already finding a studio to intern for. Entered for a guy named Doug Sarrett for a couple of years, about a year and a half. And so I knew what I wanted to do since I was 13. And so coming here was just another extension of what needed to be done next. And right place, right time. every single, throughout all of that early stage of my career, I'd go and hang out at a studio at their receptionist desk, and I befriended all the receptionists. Being an independent assistant, I was always ready for that last minute phone call. So at Belmont, I carried a cell phone. This is 80.
How big was that cell phone?
It was big, man. It wasn't a Motorola brick. It was an Oki brick, but it's similar. You know, it was that clunk, just and an antenna that went.
Yep.
And,
military grade.
Yep. And I was kind of the anomaly because it cost a lot of money to have a cell phone back then. It was the early stages of it, but I justified it by if I could get one job a month, it would pay for that phone. And so that would be like a last minute phone call because I didn't have a clientele list. I was a student first and foremost, and it just always worked out. I'd be in like class, and my phone would it vibrate?
No, I doubt it.
It was just off or on.
Yeah, I don't think it vibrated back then.
No, that's right. It was silent or on.
Yeah.
And so I looked down, and my phone would ring, and I would excuse myself out of class.
Yeah.
Because really the only people who had that number was clients. At Belmont, my second semester senior year, I was out at the mall in Bellevue because it was the mall, and I was shopping, and there was a guy on the other side of the table. I think it was shirts, and I had placed my cell phone on top of the shirts, and I was just kind of thumbing through, and just that casual, hey, how's it going kind of thing, looking across the table. He goes, can I ask you a question? Yeah, sure. You look really young. Thanks. Why do you have a cell phone? My name's David, and I am a freelance assistant engineer. And went on to tell him what I just told you about just being available and having that as a tool. And made a little bit more small talk. And I left to go check out, and when I went to go check out, he came back around and he introduced himself. Hi, by the way, my name is Mervyn Warren, and I was in a band called Take Six. Oh, and I went, oh, I remember Take Six. Nice to meet you. He goes, I'm working on a record right now at Quad, and my engineer, his name is Tony Shepard. There's a chance that I'm going to be working on a big record in the next 6 months or so, and I'd love for you to come over and meet Tony. I introduce you to Tony. I like your personality, and if it works, I'd love to have you involved on this record. Sure. Well, I had worked at Quad on staff for about 14 or 15 months, and I had quit over there, but I quit with good relation. I didn't burn that bridge, and so I said, yeah, I know where Quad is. I'll come over in the next couple of days. So I did. A couple of days later, I stop in, meet Tony, and they were working on a Chris Willis record for Warner Brothers. I don't know why I know that. Introduced, I hung out for about an hour or so, and then nothing. 3 months later, I get a phone call from Mervyn's Holly. All these names are coming. Holly called me, who was his production assistant, and said, hey, Mervyn told me he met you and he's about to start this record. Still no knowledge of what this record was, but it was always kind of talked about like, oh, that record. And want to see what your availability is starting this date. Let me check my calendar. Yep, good. And that's when she went on to tell me that Mervyn was going to be producing this record with Quincy Jones.
What?
And it was Handel's Messiah, A Soulful Celebration, which was a black version, a gospel version of Handel's Messiah.
Sure.
And I had been in the studios long enough to have that kind of studio etiquette of hold your applause.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it inside.
Yeah, no one to hold them, no one to fold them.
Yep, just be professional about it.
Yeah.
And so get off the phone, and I'm like, holy balls, Quincy Jones.
Holy.
So for the Handel's Messiah record, I had a 10-year goal when I moved here in 1988 to be in LA. And in 90, and we were doing a lot of trips to LA to record either artists, or the big pinnacle part of the record is the Hallelujah chorus.
Oh, the Messiah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so for that, one of the reasons why they had Quincy was We Are the World.
Mm-hmm.
We Are the World was the big
ensemble.
So we had the same studio, A&M Studios, same bleachers, risers, Quincy in the middle, conducting them. He did it here for this genre, and he recreated it here for this record. We were there doing the choir the day before the judgment came down on the Rodney King situation.
Mm-hmm.
I was there. We were there recording the week of the riots, and got stuck in LA for 3 days. Couldn't get out because the city was burning. And it's this interesting footnote to kind of my career. It's just an interesting one. It definitely stopped my 10-year goal. Watching just the crime and just the yuckiness. We had done the choir the day before the verdict. That was when the cop got
exonerated,
or
acquitted.
Yeah, acquitted.
Yeah. It's not exonerated.
And that's what sparked everything, was this white cop in a white courtroom, and white, and there was no justice. Since there was no justice.
Sure.
So we did the choir the day before the acquittal. The next day, the day of the riots, we had a brass section later in the afternoon. And that morning, Mervyn needed to get his hair cut. And he had 2 places that he'd like to get his hair done, here in Nashville and out there in LA. And so he asked me if I would drive him down to get his hair cut. Yeah, no problem. So we're going down La Cienega. We get lost. And so we pull over, and I pull out, hey, I've got a cell phone. Open it up. Hey, we're at this intersection, and we're lost. Can you tell us how to get in? And the lady on the other line said, ooh, you're close, so come on in, but be careful because they're riding down here. Okay, it's a sunny day, it's beautiful. So get back in the car, or not get back on the road, and turn in, and we're now in kind of Compton area, and pull up in front of the shop, get out. Doors were locked. Went and knocked on the door. Hey, we're here. Come on in. They locked the door behind us. And I went over and found a corner chair and just sat and just was watching TV. And boom, instantly cut in from whatever was Price is Right or whatever. It was the local broadcast. It was breaking news. And it was the helicopter flights all over the city, just kind of showing all different little pockets that were erupting. And they cut to the intersection where, was it Reginald Denny? Was he the truck driver that got pulled out of his dump truck? They cut to that intersection, and they're filming the helicopters filming him getting pulled out, and people starting to stomp him. Somebody going into the cab and getting his fire hydrant and throwing it on his head. And I remember one of the girls was sitting there cutting, and she goes, ooh, that's just a block and a half away from here. And I got real emotional. I knew I was safe. And it was just this rush of just emotions of watching it, knowing that it was within proximity, and then with her saying, hey, that's just right there.
Yeah, it's fascinating too if you look at any type of thing where a person of a minority, a person of color, is involved in this sort of melee. Then it's a riot, it's destructive, it's horrifying, it's terrible. And then look over here, after the Super Bowl, and white people were turning over cars, lighting things on fire, getting into fights, like all that, and that's just joyful celebration. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You can't
have it both ways.
No, they're either both riots or they're both conversation about something.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yeah.
It's frustrating that there's this blind spot when it comes to that. You know, that frustrates me.
Yep.
But that's why people march, I guess, so that the blind spot gets lifted, so that the conversation
and those core people that want their voice to be heard.
And deserve to be heard.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, and they at that point can get the recognition to have their leaders listen to them and hopefully change things.
They need everybody needs to vote, and that especially includes people that feel the most marginalized. That's people of color. That's people impoverished. It's people that don't feel like they're part of the system. They are constantly being made to feel like they're not part of the system and that their voice doesn't matter. But see, the powers that be count on that. So, in my humble opinion, they need to get out there and get voting to change so that the people in power are actually listening.
Yeah.
So they become the people in power are people of color. The people in power are people who maybe were raised up poor, and you know what I mean. The for the people by the people, it's not, and it needs to be. I mean, that's again me in the Pollyanna moment, but it is frustrating. I think it's getting better. I think people are seeing that. I've seen this rash of people who want. Who are trying to get elected, who are now campaigning to be elected, that are maybe on the more fringe, or, we have our first transgender mayor. We have there's like all this stuff that's happening, and it's wonderful.
But at the end of the day, it's politics. I really do believe they go in with this pureness of, I'm going to change the system.
I think some do, and I think it does get tarnished along the way, because money has a powerful aphrodisiac. And as we all know, the saying is there for a reason: absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Right now, Susan's looking at me with longing, beautiful eyes, because she knows how rich I am. It's the aphrodisiac.
It's rich in spirit.
Why am I turning to the microphone to say this?
Rich in spirit. Oh, man. Anyway, we could talk about that stuff forever. So you kept moving through your...
Yep, kept moving through the career. That was kind of that was a foundational spot for me, so I kind of needed to establish that.
When did you get sober? Somewhere in there?
So I got married, and I had a little drug problem going into our marriage, and also had... The reason why I had that drug problem is I had a big secret that I was really hiding from everybody. And it was a year before I got married. I spent 4 months in Memphis working on a Screaming Cheetah Willie's record. And during those 4 months, I came home twice. We weren't married.
Wait, I'm sorry. Was Screaming Cheetah Willie's record the big secret?
No.
Okay. That's the way you said that. I thought, wow.
Wow, that's a 4-month secret.
That's a big secret.
How did nobody ever see this one? I was there for 4 months. I came home twice. Terry and I weren't married, but we were living together. We were committed. And during this time in Memphis, I just fell in with the band and fell into that lifestyle, and hooked up with a lady who was there, and all good. And then came home, assimilated back into home life, and I get a phone call, and I'm sitting down eating with Terry and my daughter Tori, and it's the studio manager at Ardent. And, hey, Susan, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. Hey, do you have a second? Yep. I need to send you... There's a letter that's been sitting on our desk for a couple of weeks, and it was to somebody, but a name that nobody here... We don't know who this is. So one day I opened it up, and I'm reading it, and it says it's to a Dave Thomas. And I'm reading through it, and I'm going, oh, everything sounds like it's David Hall. Maybe it is. Let me just reach out to you. reached out to me. It was Dave Thomas because it was easy when you're drunk to remember your first name. Thomas was just literally pulled out of the sky. Find out that it's Dave Thomas is also the owner of Wendy's.
I was just going to say, that's the owner of Wendy's.
Yeah. There was no reference point.
So in other words, when you were wasted, you told this girl your name was Dave Thomas.
Absolutely.
I got it.
But I only have to tell her Dave Thomas once or twice.
That's right.
At that point, I'm Dave.
Okay. And how old is your daughter at this point?
She is 4. 3 or 4.
Okay, so you were already you weren't married.
We weren't
yet,
married.
But
Yeah.
you had a child. And
had
you
a
were,
child.
And okay, got it.
I had
I'm
a
just
child.
Catching up with all the numbers here.
Yep. And so I get this call from Susan, and I said, "Yeah, just
not me.
No, no,
different Susan.
Yep. We wouldn't be.
There's
having
only
this.
like 4 of us. So.
I thought there was 5.
Maybe 5.
Yeah. Anyway, I said, "Yeah, just." She wanted to send me the letter. And I said, "Yeah, here's my address." She goes, Is there maybe a more private address?" And I said, "Yeah, you can send it over to Master Phonics." And I gave her the address. And that's really it. So we end the phone call. I now have to go back and sit and process this half information. And so for the next couple of days while I'm waiting for this letter, all I could think about was, all right, I have AIDS. I have some sexually transmitted disease, whatever. Just something pretty bad. Pregnancy was not on that list at all. Part of it was because of the girl I'll let you figure out how you want to address. Yeah. She was a stripper.
Okay.
And
that's okay.
And she's not now.
Okay.
But with that mentality of, oh, she's a stripper, well, she's definitely got protection and so that was not even thought about. So a couple of days later, I get this letter, and I've worked myself up into just this anxiety.
Yeah.
I get it, take it over to the back area, and I open it, and it was a Dear John letter. Hey, I don't want anything from you. I just need to let you know that this has happened, and that's it.
And this was pregnancy.
This was pregnancy. And she wasn't wanting anything. She just needed to let me know. Mm-hmm. And I had dabbled in drugs a bit in college, but it wasn't this big focal point. And I'd always heard, don't get involved with cocaine. It is horrible. It is the most amazingly horrible drug out there. And I found a night guy at the studio, and I went, and I knew he smoked pot, and I went directly to him and I said, "Hey, can you get me some cocaine?" Cocaine. Don't do it, Dewey.
Don't do it, Dewey. You don't want
it makes all your happiness happy. And I did it because I just wanted to check out.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know how it would affect me, although all I knew was that thankfully somebody didn't tell me heroin, because I probably would have gone there. I just didn't want to feel. And so that started a 8-year run.
Expensive habit, too.
It was real expensive.
Did Terry catch on?
She did.
And did you tell her you were pregnant?
No.
Okay.
Heck no. I got caught before we got married. I had, working as an assistant, you're working till 2-3 in the morning all the time, and then you're coming in, so you're first in, last out, so 9 a.m. till 2 a.m. consistently. And we were working 2-3 months on, maybe 2 days off, 3 or 4 months on, and so it was just stupid 100-hour weeks. And so I had come home and thrown my jeans into the dirty pile. A couple days later, Terry wakes me up, and she's got, "What's this?" And she had found a glass vial that I had forgot to take out of my pocket. And I was able to tell her that I'm just working a lot of hours, and I'm tired of drinking coffee. Somebody suggested this. I'm sorry, it's a mistake. It never happened again. she accepted that. And then something else happened. I don't remember what it was, but something else happened where I showed my hand and I said, I'll go get help. And so I started going to Cocaine Anonymous. And it literally was just to kind of appease the situation.
Had you quit?
No. But I didn't have a big problem yet. It was a problem, but it hadn't fully developed.
So you're going to NA while doing cocaine.
Yeah. It's really...
Step 13. They don't
Yeah,
do that.
yeah, exactly.
Step 0.
Well, that'll come into play here in a second because we got married in March, and I was able to kind of hide it better. Got married in March, and then August... I screwed up again, and Terry she was putting it together, like a year-long cold, bad allergies, checks that are missing. I would run home at lunchtime. I would go from Music Road to Belmead and back in an hour and hit a bank to go and get a
8-ball or something.
No, to get a check out of my mailbox. I would go get the check, go to the bank, cash it, either have the cash for later that night when I hooked up with the dealer, or swing over to the dealer's house to pay him because he was fronting me it was this vicious cycle. And so there's just a lot of small and medium things that I was showing my hand, and my wife, she just put it all together. And so August, I messed up again. Like, I worked till 4 in. She wakes me up at like 5:30 in the morning, and she's really in touch with her intuition. She's really in touch with a spiritual sense of direction. And something woke her up that night and said, "Go check the phone records." She pulled out the folder of phone records and just kind of like, why are all these phone calls and phone calls happening at this time of the night? And she really put it together. She woke me up and said, "I don't know what it is. I know you're using again. Come clean." "Nope, not using." "Come clean or else this threat." "Nope, all good. Mum's word." She finally evoked, "I'm going to tell your grandparents." My grandparents were really special people to me. And at that point, it was like, I wanted to do everything to protect them. My parents, yeah, I did, but they weren't my grandparents held me on this pedestal. My parents held me there on a lower one. Same, but there was just a special relationship. So when she threatened to tell my grandparents, that's when I came clean. It's like, okay, yes, whatever you need, I will do. Checked into Cumberland Heights, August 1994. Did a 28-day stay out there, and it was great because I'd already had some sort of like peripheral experience with the 12-step community out here on my own, trying to do it and use, which never works. Never works. No. When I went to treatment, I got healthy and was also taught about the recovery element of the disease concept versus the non-disease concept.
And all the while you're carrying this secret with you.
I'm carrying the secret. So the secret still hasn't come out. So early on at Cumberland, like within the first week, during a group therapy thing with a counselor, everyone kind of went around the room and explained why they were there. And my explanation was, I'm here because I just want to not use. I did not want to use. But bigger than that, I just want to be able to protect this secret. It's just going to go away. I can keep it out here in the closet. It's over there. Mm-hmm. I can manage that. I'm just trying to emotionally manage it through drugs. And, of course, the counselor laughed. It's like, no, that's not how it works. Mm-hmm. The secrets are what keep you sick. Mm-hmm. And I accepted everything and fell into this wonderful world of recovery and steps and step work, but I still held the secret. The secret is over here. Nobody's going to know about it. Family Week happens at the end of your treatment stay, and it's kind of the bridge to assist you going out of this really protected environment back into reality. But it also introduces your problems, your concept to your loved ones, your family members. And it's a great bridge. It lasts the last week. And so you get this daily, you get a little bit more closure to prepare you for that exit. And day 2 of Family Week, I get called out of some group counseling. And Everett was my counselor. And he pulled me into his office. I sat down and he goes, David, Family Week's a safe place to let go of all those secrets. And I can tell you this, I can't tell you when you'll use again, but I can tell you that you will use again if you continue to hold the secret. It's a big one. I get it. But arms crossed, not going to happen. Not going to happen. And he wore me down and just stayed on me.
Did he know what it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In treatment, all secrets are kind of the anonymity aspect of it. And this is before social media and the openness there. We really did kind of trust that environment. No, not going to happen. Not going to happen. About 30 minutes later, he broke me. And I was just this blubbering mess. It's like, yes, okay, I get it. Yeah, I'll come clean. I'll tell Terry. He picks up his phone, calls down to the family program, and a counselor gets my wife out of a group setting, brings her up to me. She has no idea what she's walking into. And she opens the door, and the counselor's in there. Her counselor's with her, and I'm spent. I'm just an emotional, just broken. And so she walks into the room. She's reading the room, and she sees that, and she sits down next to me, and Everett set it up, Mrs. Hall, because we were married at that point, only for 5 or 6 months. David has something he needs to tell you. And then just let it sit right there. And, obviously I didn't make any eye contact. I just was down, looking at my feet. Oh. And I came clean. And I've only heard Terry wail like this twice. Once was there, and then the other one was when Houston was born. Houston came, his delivery was a painful one, and she had problems, and that was the other time that I heard just this animal wail from her. And I'd already kind of convinced myself that when I left 3 days or 4 days later, that I was going to drive into my driveway and all of the clothes were going to be strewn out all over the place. And after a pause, Terry kind of recovers, and she gets down on her knees in front of me and grabs my hands and gets me to look up, like lift my head up, and she goes, I don't know why and I don't know how, but there's a reason, and we're going to figure this out. And it was still hard. That next year was really, really hard, just rebuilding the trust. Anytime we would travel, at that time my daughter was in travel soccer, so anytime we would travel to either Memphis or Arkansas, Terry literally we'd stop before we got inside of the Memphis city limits, like Germantown. She would drive through Memphis because Memphis was it was Memphis, and there was a blight on Memphis. Mm-hmm. And after about a year, we were getting on the interstate somewhere, and she turned to me and she said, she acknowledged that something subtly had shifted and that there was trust that was rebuilding. And I don't remember what it was she said, but it was a verbal acknowledgement of we're going to make it. And the funny thing is, it's funny, it's that dark gallows humor. I left treatment and went to the dealer's house the day of getting out because I had a debt to pay. I went into treatment with, I think it was like $1,000 that I owed him. And so I went there with the intent of paying it off. See you later. Nope. Paid him off and went with an 8-ball.
Shit.
And
right out of treatment.
Right out of treatment. The kind of, with perspective, the kind of interesting thing is treatment taught me where center was. It taught me where the safe zone was in the recovery zone. And so I would get clean. After that, I would get 30 days or 60 days. And I'd be within the community, but I never had a sponsor. I never really took the principles. It was just kind of, maybe it'll rub off on me. And so I'd get 30 or 60 days and something would happen, and a stressful thing or long hours, and I would go back and use. And I'd get out here and I'd get really stuck using. And it'd just get painful. And it's like, I always knew where center was. Center was here. So I'd be on the periphery, and I'd go to meetings and be using. So I knew it was there, but I hadn't fully invested in it.
Do you think people there knew you were using? I mean, I imagine probably. They know what it looks like.
Yeah, probably.
I'm curious, not to backtrack too much, but why, way back when, in that moment, I know that you said you fell in with the music people and stuff. What do you think it was? You were happy with your relationship with Terry. You were going to get married.
Yeah.
Why'd you do it? Or do you know why?
I don't know. I don't know.
You weren't not in love with... I say this a lot of times to people when I talk about infidelity. It really has nothing to do with the couple generally. I think it has more to do with the person that does it than the relationship itself. Now, sometimes it's like people are not happy in the relationship or whatever, but you were in love and you were... But it didn't have anything to do with Terry.
Had nothing to do with Terry. I think, as I'm thinking on my feet and hearing that, I think part of it was the need for attention, the need for attention. You know, if you lavish yourself on me, then my ego gets built up, and everything there, and that just even chemically just makes everything really rise. And that's the only thing I can really...
And it becomes its own drug.
And it becomes its own drug. Yeah.
Makes sense.
As you asked that, it just kind of... It's one I'm going to process a little bit. So, tell Terry, year-long battle of just gaining trust back. Probably 3 or 4 years after getting the letter, I finally met Nate for the first time.
Your son.
My son. And
how was Terry about that?
Terry was accepting of that. And, you know, it was definitely a visual, hard example of the bad times. But she was accepting of it.
Were you clean yet at this point?
I was still using off and on. So I was still using off and on. God, that would have been 96, 97 in that era. And we just never, Nate and I could never get connected. And for the reality is there's a lot of things that I can compartmentalize and put in its own little thing and manage it. The lack of a relationship with Nate is one of the things that I really do. It's not daily, but it's definitely something that I maneuver throughout life, is that I love kids, and I love to play with kids. I love to be at that level, and I just love kids. And to have a kid that is mine and I can't connect with them, it's just it's still a hard thing that's I just have to address and just know that it's there. And that's probably one of the core things that still is that still hurts, is that lack of relationship. I follow him in social media, and he got me yesterday. He put on his Instagram a selfie, and it said something like, "Hey Dad, it's me." It wasn't directed at me. It was probably some inside joke with some friends. But I see that.
Yeah.
And he doesn't come up in my feed very often. And I don't dig in just because of how I'm processing it. And just, it sucks. It's a selfish thing that I'm trying to work through.
Well, it's a piece of you, right?
It is.
He is a piece of you.
Yeah. And
he is his own person, but
it's such a hypocritical part of my life.
How do you mean?
Well,
because of what he was born of? Or
part of it is because of what he's born of. Part of it is this love and desire for something, and that something is right here in front of me, and it's mine. And I choose to completely go around it and not acknowledge it, and not address it, and not nurture it. And
do you mean by even now you don't?
Yeah.
You don't commit to making Nate a part of your.
Yeah.
But you can't force him to want you either.
No, I can't. But
how old is he?
He is 20.
So he's an adult.
24. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, how do your other children? They know obviously that he's out there, and that's their half sibling.
Right.
Where are they with it? Do they just sort of not?
It's not addressed.
It's just a person.
It's not in the closet. It's definitely not something that's stuck. That skeleton is not in there. But it's just not addressed.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you remember that car you used to have in 2006? Oh yeah, I hadn't thought about it in a long time.
So where along the way did you decide enough is enough with the drugs?
So 2000, coming in a brain. 2000, I got a DUI, and I was able to always manipulate out of situations pretty well. Mm-hmm. Look back on it, didn't do a very good job at all. But I was able to always kind of manipulate the consequences. Mm-hmm. That was a consequence I couldn't get rid of. Tennessee's hard on DUI. Williamson County is harder on DUI. And when I was driving home, it was 2 or 3 in the morning, driving down I-65, just past the old Hickory Boulevard exit. I am golden. I am between the lines. I am driving like a chief. Except I was driving 45 miles an hour.
Oh, no.
And so when the high patrolman pulled me over...
good thing you didn't hurt anybody.
How's it going, officer? Yeah, it is. Years after I finally got sober, I really wanted to find him and sincerely tell him that he saved my life by that consequence. So I got the DUI in 2000, and that next year, from 2000 to 2001, I used more in that year than I had done in the previous time leading up to it.
Wow.
It was a daily 8-ball.
How are you paying for it?
It was good money. I was, as an assistant, I was making $25 an hour times 80-hour week. And Terry had a great job. And so we were
doing okay.
We were doing okay.
Yeah.
And that's why I would run home and get that check out of the mailbox from Warner Brothers or whomever, because it was a big, and we could live off of hers, and I could float the excuse of, I don't know, I got lost in the mail, or. And so 2000, 2001, I used more in that time. And I was always really good about when my cutoff was. The last time I would use that night, so that I could at least try to sleep throughout that night and wake up refreshed. And I had overshot myself that night, and it was like 4 a.m. whenever I was driving home. And instead of like shutting off like at midnight or 1, I used way past my sweet spot. And so I was just hyped up and gacked up. Get off of the interstate at Franklin, take a left, I could go home. Go straight, I could not go home. If I'd go home, I'm going to toss and turn. I have a bloody nose, not get any sleep. I have to be real careful with the tossing and turning, not to show my cards. Or I just drive and just drive. And I chose the drive option. From I-65 at the Franklin exit, I drove over to Hillsborough Road, and from getting off the interstate to getting to a parking lot over Publix grocery store, in that 15-minute drive, I had complete clarity of, if it meant getting a divorce, I'm okay with that. If it means seeing my kids on the weekend, I'm okay with that. If it means losing my house and living in an apartment, I'm okay with that. And what I'm saying to myself along this journey, this trip, this 15-minute trip, was, I'm just tired. I'm tired of using. I'm tired of physically tired of the pain, emotionally tired of the pain and the lies, and just upholding those lies and the energy that takes to keep that machine in motion. And like we had talked about, I was still in the recovery community. I think at one point in that 94 to 2001 stretch, I may have gotten 6 months. May have gotten 9 months was my longest stretch of sobriety. But then something would happen, I'd go back out. Mm-hmm. And so through that, just staying on the periphery, I knew and had gotten relationships of sober people inside of AA. And I chose AA because of it's just easier access. You know, there's CA and there's NA and there's all of these different A's, but Alcoholics Anonymous that's the birthplace. And there's anyway, I had met somebody and I was calling him whenever I got to the parking lot. I called him and said, "Hey, I'm over in this parking lot. I don't want to use anymore. Help me out." And it just was weird because he was not in a good spot. And he said, "Man, it's 4 a.m. and he answered the phone. He said, I'm not the person to talk to right now, but let me give you a name and number for a guy named Larry. He's a good guy." All right, so I picked up the phone again. I called Larry, and Larry is one of those AA big book, not thumpers, but he was a preacher. He was a Baptist preacher, and so he presented himself with
that bravado.
And that education.
Sure.
And I called Larry up and I said, "Hey, Larry, my name's David. I know who you are. Here's who I am." "Oh yeah, I think I remember you."
These people all answer the phone at 4 a.m. That's to their credit.
Well, yeah, to his credit, it was because Sweet answering his phone at 4 a.m. was he was still awake. Larry answering his phone in the morning was he was being of service. And so explained to him what was going on, explained to him where I was, and I said, "I'm just tired of this." And he goes, "Are you willing to do anything?" "Absolutely. Willing to do anything at all." "All right, here's what I want you to do. Can you drive? Are you safe?" "Yeah, I can drive like a champ right now." And so he goes, "I want you to go home, wake your wife up, tell her hi. Tell her that so that and tell her that you're high and that there's no reason to fight because you're high. And in the morning, when the dust settles, call me back. That's pretty simple. It's scary, but it's pretty simple. So I did that. I drove home, woke Terry up, slept on the couch. She's like, okay, yeah, I know. And then I called him the next day and I said, all right, I'm calling you back. And he said, all right, you're willing to do anything, right? Absolutely. I think you need to go back to treatment. Or I think you need to go to treatment. I can't do that. Oh, really? Less than 6 hours ago, you were willing to do anything. And now I'm giving you one suggestion and you're saying no. Larry, here's the reason why I can't do it. I've already been to treatment. I can't afford it. And I just can't afford it. 30 days, so let's make it 60 days.
You can afford all that cocaine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because there's a lie attached to that.
Yeah.
And so I explained to him why just financially I couldn't do it. And he accepted that. He goes, all right, I'll work with you as a sponsor on a couple of conditions. If you're not going to go back to treatment, we're going to meet twice a week and we're going to study the big book. And so what that means is I need you to go buy a notepad, some highlighters, 3 different color pens, and we're going to go until I say no. We're going to study it.
The big book being the
Alcoholics Anonymous, yeah. So it's the Bible.
Yeah.
And so
not the Bible, but
it's the alcohol.
The Bible of Alcoholics
recovery.
Yeah.
And we went through and not only studied it, but we made footnotes. There was a secondary book to it, and we cross-referenced things. And I met with him for a year, twice a week at McDonald's, and we studied it, and we went through the steps, and I embraced sobriety. The biggest part of that was, up to that point, I was trying to get sober for everybody else. Mm-hmm. First and foremost, I was just trying to get sober to try to quiet this secret that I had over here. I can figure out how to manage it. Okay, now I've told my wife, but now I'm still not able to manage the secret. The secret's out. Why hasn't... Well, because there's still more energy to that.
It starts with you. It's not outside of you. And Terry stuck it out with you.
And Terry stuck it out with me.
She took her vows very seriously.
She did, and we still... This is an odd, long journey to
the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Which were pretty insane.
Yeah.
This is really what we're building up to.
Right, and it's just oddly, sorry, it's just a long...
No,
it's a long painting. But there's a lot of layers in that painting that kind of need explaining to kind of settle where this is. Are you good time and all?
Just keep going.
Okay.
We'll go till we're done.
Well, okay. Famous last words. So, my daughter, she got hooked up. She hooked up with a guy from work that was a golf pro. Sorry, a junior golf pro. And perfect in every way. Except that before he had met Tori, in 2014, he had been arrested, not allegedly, he had been arrested for strangulation, false imprisonment, and rape of the girl that he was dating before Tori. Of course, nobody knows about this, and it's all her fault. He didn't do any of it.
It's all the girl's fault that he attacked.
Absolutely.
Even though he went to jail for it, did
he
not?
He went to jail.
Wasn't he sentenced for life or something?
That comes later.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's okay. Yeah. I'll let you tell the story. Sorry,
yeah.
I've known too much for my own good. And yet not enough. Can we say his name?
We can.
Okay. Spain.
Matt Spain lives in one of the penitentiaries. Pens. Yeah, it's pens.
So he had been a golf guy.
Yep.
And he had raped and strangled, attacked his, at the time, paramour, his girlfriend. And...
Yep, and this is before Tori. This is before any of our...
Before she ever met him.
Anything.
Right.
So they start a relationship.
Tori and
Matt. Tori has a child my grandson, his name is Lincoln, and Lincoln is the result of Nick, Lincoln's dad, and Tori creating Lincoln. The relationship didn't work, but they created this beautiful grandchild. And so when Matt started courting Tori as a clinical narcissist and manipulator, he had the long game already planned out, and in how to defend himself from this tragedy, this blight. And how that looked was, obviously the attraction connected them, Tori and Matt. And then you have the weak gazelle at the watering hole. And you have the lion, who's the attacker.
Okay, so who's who in this
Okay,
story?
so the weak gazelle is Tori.
Okay.
She has a child. Not a great relationship with Nick, Lincoln's father, but making it work for Lincoln. And so they start going out. Matt and Tori. And Matt early on made a point to really focus and show attention to Lincoln. And so as a single mom, etc., she sees this amazing thing. The irony is that when I met Tori is not my birth daughter, but I've known her since she was 14 months old. And it was a package deal. So when I started dating Tori, she came with it. And so I fell in love with Tori, but I also fell in love with Tori at the same time. And I've treated her as my daughter, just like I treat Houston like my son. And the irony is that her entry into this world was very similar to Lincoln's entry into this world. Tori was a single mom. It was that was a one night oops. Waking up the next morning going, did we? Did you? Huh. All right, I'll see you next Thursday on the racquetball court. And it kind of was truly like that. And so when Nick and Tori hooked up, the relationship didn't work, but
they got
a child came out of it. And so Tori just kind of knows, even though it's been somewhat stable in our house as a husband, wife, mother, father with her, she still knows the story of her. And so when she sees that history is about to repeat itself, or is repeating itself, and she sees Matt throwing love on Lincoln,
she thinks it's like the way her...
just like how she...
Yeah.
It's worked.
She's feeling the parallel. She's like, wait, this is just like, David loved me. Matt will love Lincoln.
The parallel. That's the perfect word for it. And so he won her there. And then was able to raise her up and chop her down just enough.
So he started doing the emotional abuse.
Yeah, the gaslighting. Is
now a term for that.
Now a term, yeah. And have you talked about any of that in your other?
No.
So if you are involved in a relationship like a battered wife type relationship, or a relationship that just there's dynamics that are really out of control and respect, look up gaslighting. And
I'll put a link to it on there, but it's basically, it makes people feel like they're crazy. It's just enough manipulation and control and all that stuff to almost seem like something, but then you're not sure, and then the perpetrator makes it seem like you're crazy or that you're way out of line.
Absolutely.
Narcissists are famous for this, by the way. This is a huge game plan of a narcissist. And at this point, Tori and you and Terry, nobody knows that he had these priors.
Nobody knows this.
This is why I swear to God, anyone I date from now on is getting a full background check.
Yeah. So nobody knew this. They were dating. They started dating October of 2015. Lincoln's birthday is April. April, and
okay.
It's in April.
Yeah.
And there was a birthday party for Lincoln on a Sunday. I think it was like April 5th or 8th. Stayed for the birthday party because he wanted to commit to that. But then he figured out a way to duck out the back door and go to work. And Tori, that set this chain of events that she started tumbling emotionally throughout the day and processing of, well, you want to be, but you're not committing to it. You want to be a father, you want to be a father figure, but you're not committing to it. And by the end of that evening, Terry gets a FaceTime call on her phone at like 10 or so, and it's Tori. And this is where I just have to. It's just part of it. I want to really try to protect some of this, yeah. but I can't because it is what it is.
Yeah.
Tori she had worked herself up, so emotionally worked herself up that she was in a fetal position and had called Terry, and Lincoln was probably 2. Lincoln was wandering around the house. Tori was just couldn't function. And so we lived about 5 minutes from her house, run over there, get her, just kind of hug her and figure out what's going on. Terry takes Lincoln home. Tori's car is there, and I said, take Lincoln home, get him in bed, I'll take care of Tori, and I'll get her home. And so she did that, and I stayed there at the house for, 30 minutes or so, and laid down beside her and just held her and hugged her, and we've always been able to kind of talk like this and just try to keep the energy and emotion from, oh my gosh, to kind of more reality and bringing it, calming it down. And so was able to get her up, gather a couple, like a week's worth of clothes, and take her home. Got her home.
To your house?
To the house. And it was about 10:30, almost 11 o'clock. And we're just hanging out in the kitchen. We're exhausted. She's exhausted. And in that moment of exhaustion, she goes, hey, look up Matthew, Spain on Google and put Alabama in it.
So she knew.
Why? Just do it. So I grabbed my phone and was, what? Yeah, I found that out about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago. He had just seen his parents, and he said that, like a last minute thing, I've got to go see my parents. Why? You just were there a couple of days ago. Well, that's something I got to do. And she pushed him, and finally she pushed him hard enough for him to go, all right, here's the deal. It's all trumped up charges, but I got to go talk to my attorney. Why? Again, all trumped up charges. Not true. Spite, it's a scorned lover. This is what I've got to address. All good though, because when I win, we are going to sue them for $200,000. That's kind of a low number, isn't it? So she had found out, and she had been sitting on that information for 3 or 4 weeks.
Talk about stress.
He was just in the beginning stages of the gaslighting. And everything that you just said in the description, I just went back there because it's exactly what I read. It's stuff that I had studied about. It's stuff that a therapist had told us and educated us on. And he had done that. He had gotten her to a spot where he hadn't completely knocked her and broke her, but he had gotten her to the spot where she was doubting.
Or she was
in foundation.
A fetal position on the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she's like, what the?
Yep. And so She was doubting her foundation. He had planted just enough seeds and had kissed enough times to offset the hits and either the physical or the
so he
emotional.
Was physical abusive too.
There was some physical abuse.
Where was it in the trial at this point? Because according to what I read, he had been convicted of the rape and of the strangulation and the false imprisonment.
It was all in the court system at that point. 2014 to 2017, his attorneys played the court and
just kept appealing.
Yeah, keep appealing and pushing it off.
And somebody had said life. I read somewhere life imprisonment, which I thought was awesome. That's how it should be for rape. But that I was surprised by that because it's generally like 7 years or something. Pathetic for rape.
And you have the up to this penalty. The penalty for this is minimum to up to life in prison. We found that information out, and Tori kind of was like, yeah, this is crazy. This is wrong. This is not the person I need to be with. I don't believe him. This is crazy. I need to work on myself. We went to, that was on a Sunday. Monday, we were able to get in with a therapist, and it was Terry, Tori, and I. And Tori hadn't seen this therapist in a while, so he had to kind of get caught up to, she was pregnant also at this point. And
with Matt's baby.
And so the therapist had to catch up to speed with, okay, you're pregnant, okay, good, fine. You're dating, and you've got these issues. So he kind of had to triage and figure out which one was the more important discussion point to narrow down in 48 minutes. And that was on a Monday, and left the therapist with this clarity of, I'm going to work on my stuff. He needs to work on his stuff. If we get back together, that's fine. But right now, we've got to work on our own things.
Was she considering getting back together with that?
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, that is that
gaslighty thing.
Gaslighted, battered wife.
Yeah.
I love you. I hate you. I love you. I hate you.
Right.
And that was Monday. That was Monday.
Psychological warfare is a real thing, and it's extraordinarily powerful. I mean, it's what they use in in torture.
Yeah. Tuesday night. So now Tori's living at the house. Temporarily, just kind of like, boom, set. And Tuesday night, we went back and looked at the phone records from like 11 o'clock Tuesday night till 4 or 5 in the morning, Wednesday morning. He called her and kept her on the phone that whole time. So it was like 5.5, 6 hours.
Keeping her awake. That's
and
part
just
of it, by the
feeding
way.
all of that stuff and reinforcing
sleep deprivation, food deprivation, mental, questioning, telling half-truths so that you can sort of feed that insecurity, telling full-on falsehoods. It's all part of that.
Yep. It's scrambled. It's a scrambled brain.
But the sleep deprivation's actually a big part of it.
Yeah, and she definitely was between being a young mom and also...
So she'd given birth by now?
She hadn't been... No, just with Lincoln.
Oh, with Lincoln.
Yeah.
Sorry, right. Sorry.
So, so he was able to keep her on the phone. I lost Tori Wednesday, April 8th. He was able to reestablish a stronghold. And Wednesday or Thursday, Tori decided, you know what? It's all good. He's apologized. He's moving back in. Thanks for helping. And Terry and I, what? No. If you choose to go here and wear your big girl pants, then all of these little things that as parents you just take care of. Cell phone, we've paid for it since you're in high school, so until otherwise you're just family plan. So all those little things, deposits for cable. There was a list of, we don't agree and don't approve of this. So if you choose to go back into crazy, then the consequences are you've got to become fully self-sufficient.
Right. Thinking that might snap her back.
Yeah. Or just just us establishing just a
boundary.
A boundary.
Yeah.
The boundary. That word comes back into play a lot during this. And so she went, I know what I'm doing. From April 8th to November 24th, the only conversation I had with her was, fuck you, fuck off, leave us the fuck alone. And I became...
And she said that to you guys?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
She said that to us. The boundaries that Terry and I had set up stayed very strong and very organized for about a month.
Was he being physically abusive through this whole...
I think in the early stages, toward the end, he was hitting her and threats of hitting her, like a raised fist kind of thing.
But it was all emotional.
Yeah.
Which is still horrifying. Yeah. Sure.
So that first month, setting boundaries were all good and set. And I like to dig in with whatever I'm doing and just kind of, once I kind of did that, I went into some of the outer bands of what feeds gaslighting. And one of the bands out there was the splitting.
Separating you from your family.
Yep. So it's triangulation. Mm-hmm. And the triangulation of, there's always a triangle. Like even now, you and I have a triangle against this individual. And it works because we can support ourselves against that person. We're triangulated, triad, dyad against Tori. We don't approve of this, so we are going to hold our boundaries together. Mm-hmm. Tori was able to, within a month and a half, was able to pull Terry over into her sphere. That left me being the asshole. And left me being able to separate heart and mind and not be reactive emotionally and being present. Does that make sense?
Heart versus head.
Heart versus head. Sure. Emotion.
Yeah.
Emotional driven versus...
it's interesting that Terry was able to be pulled into that, even in the wake of seeing what was going on.
There's more...
But she had a history of that, if you think about it, because she lived in a situation where her husband, you, was doing all sorts of things that were probably to her intuition or even her intellect.
Absolutely.
That she was aware of, and yet she compartmentalized. And so in order to love her daughter, I'm guessing she compartmentalized all the crap. Absolutely. Because she wanted to love her daughter. Not that you didn't want to love her daughter, but it's just a different, and there's that
I kind of
maternal bond.
Know that, but I haven't ever heard it presented like that. That's it's a very true statement of, it's a good read from just this conversation. It's a really good read of the dynamics between Terry and I. Because at some point she did know. And so when I would come back in the center when I was using, then I would change, and then I would change, and then so she knew that
sure
dynamic.
She could tell the arc even if she wasn't conscious.
Yeah. And I just never have heard somebody put it in those terms. It's just interesting.
So she's now siding with.
She's now trying to be the fixer between Tori and I, and I'm holding boundaries, and what that means is that I'm the target and I'm the asshole. Also, what it means is that I'm the one that the gaslighter can't manipulate.
So you become the enemy.
I become the enemy, twofold. Bringing in Terry, threefold. We've got reinforcements, and Tori fundamentally knows this is not what I know. But the gaslighting...
Yeah. It's Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's Stockholm Syndrome.
It shifted enough doubt in there of going, the crazy part of I love, you're right, you're wrong, you're wrong, right, you're wrong. Hey, look, red. Wait, you're right, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And that mental game of, I don't know, I know that's a pen.
Yeah.
I know, I saw you pick it up and I saw you write. It was green. I saw you pull the cap out. But I don't know now. And that's what that gaslighting thing is. And so when I said I lost her for that time, I still made a point to be present as much as I could as a father.
Mm-hmm. At this point, she had the baby? Because you say April to November.
Lily was born September 20th. You always hear that you'll fight when it comes to family. You'll do whatever it takes to fight for them, and if it means, say a loved one has cancer, you're going to do whatever it takes. You're going to go into debt. You're going to sell everything to get the best treatment. And so with Tori, 2016 was every day from April 8th to November 24th, I did something address this. And this being, if I was talking to Franklin PD or the DA or whomever it was, to just press. All I wanted was him gone. I don't care where you go. Hopefully it's back to Alabama, but all I want you is out of my daughter's life.
And all the while the appeals are going on.
All the while.
Which is why he's not in jail, even though, which is bizarre to me.
Well,
did somebody pay his bail or something?
Yeah. Family members. He was out on bail.
Oh.
And he was grand jury convicted until of 2017. I was not allowed to meet Lily until she was born September 20th. And he went away November 23rd, 24th. November 24th is when I met Lily for the first time.
He went away meaning to jail?
He went away. That was the beginning of his demise. The 23rd, late at night, like midnight, he broke into, they were starting to break up, and they were starting to he was becoming more aggressive,
and so she was freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she was also
put up with a lot of mental abuse, but then
and that's when his physical spot was, he was losing the emotional battle, so he ramped it up into physical. So he was trying to get her to move to Eagleville, to a trailer that his parents knew somebody who had a trailer on their property, and they were going to rent it for like $300 a month. And, it was for isolation.
Of course.
And Tori, that was the one thing Tori's like, that line right there, no. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to go.
Isolation's a big part of that.
He could not get her out there, and so that's when that's when they really started to pull apart. Mm. I had set up a camera at Tori's house, motion sensitive security camera. She knew about it. And sorry, I set it up after this. November 23rd, he broke into her house at midnight or 1. Get a phone call. It was Tori, and she was hysterical, and she said, Matt came in here, trashed the place. So jumped into the car. And I had told Terry, the next time we go to not rescue her, but
help
whatever,
her, yeah,
that we'll beat the cops. We will always beat the cops to wherever it is. But the next time that we do that, I am calling the police. There is a report that's going to be made.
Did you not make a report? Did she not make a report for the first break-in?
No, he was always able to manipulate. And because I'm not involved, or Terry's not involved, legally it's hard for us to press and intervene.
Sure.
And she's an adult.
Yeah.
So that was, I'm driving to her house, midnight, whatever, on the phone, 911 to Williamson County. We beat the cops there, but they come in, and now they are going to take a report. And so that night, there was an arrest warrant made.
Because he's on video.
Sorry, I hadn't done the video yet.
Oh.
But there was physical evidence.
Yeah, sure.
And also, as we're driving up, we see him in his car driving away.
Ah.
So even if Tori didn't say anything, we were witnesses to...
Yes.
Okay, we didn't see it, but we can tie the two together.
You can put him in the time and place.
Yep. So that started this amazing journey of wanting to really be in jail. He He got picked up a couple days later on their warrant, got a bail bondsman, bailed out within a couple hours. Part of his bail condition was to not have any contact, sure. All of those things.
Restraining order.
Except because they have a child.
Oh.
That kind of puts the wrinkle in there, because if I need to communicate as the child's father to you about the child, hey, when's the doctor's appointment?
Sure.
We do need to communicate that way. So it's this weird loophole in the restraining order. And so... It's
not ordered through a court, that like a court-ordered person is the intermediary? Or?
The magistrate, Williamson County, calls Tori and says... texts Tori and says, hey, I know I'm not supposed to be communicating with you, but blah, blah, blah. And so she screen capped it and sent it to me. She was just knocked off his spell just enough to have have 3 weeks of clarity with her. Got picked up for bond condition. Bailed out again. This time bailed out on his own recognizance. The magistrate, again, not knowing any of the backstory, said, "Oh yeah, you're employed. You're fine. You're going to show up, right?
You look good.
Yeah, you're going to show up on this date, right? Yes, Your Honor. Okay, we're going to release you on your own." That's fucked up. If you are the triage judge and you don't have any past, I get it. There's got to be some sort of
imagine an amount of people going through there. That's one of the just a hair on the back of the hog that is the crazy ass justice system. Mm-hmm. It's so backlogged. It's so.
I just experienced this. This is an abuser, domestic abuse. That's what his original assault was with break-in. And so you're letting the strong person of the domestic abuse, you're letting him out on his own recognizance. Mm. How do you justify that? Mm-hmm. How do you justify that? You don't. You got to have safety nets in there mm-hmm. to take that
this
decision
is how people
making.
Get murdered.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly,
to take this decision making out of you, who probably are trying to be unbiased, but you.
Yeah.
But. Yeah. So, bailed out on his own recognizance. Got drunk he also had a drinking problem, allegedly. He got drunk, found himself out in Spring Hill by the Saturn plant, crashed his car, walked a 38-degree night, walked 2 miles to a guard shack at the Saturn plant, like in a blackout, not knowing he had lost his backpack and how did I get here and can I use your phone? And didn't have his wallet. Spring Hill cop comes because the guard called the cops, and they come pick him up, checked his records.
Yeah.
And then Williamson County, they found out Williamson County, he was out on bond in Williamson County. So Spring Hill calls Williamson County and says, "Hey, we'll meet at the county line. I think we have one of yours that we need to give to you."
Yeah.
And that was middle of December, maybe beginning of December. And then I get a phone call from the assistant DA who I used to play soccer with and who lives in my neighborhood, who's been just a good person. And he said, "Mr. Hall?" "Yes, sir." "This is X. Hey, do you happen to know where Mr. POS is at this present moment?" "Actually, I do. He's one of two places. He's either at this location, which is the address of his work, or he's at this location, which is the address of the trailer. It's only two places that he'll be at." "All right, I'll call you later, sir. Thank you." And so it's we never talk like that, but it was very specific.
Yeah,
this is a professional call.
Yeah.
And later the next day, the assistant DA calls me and explains to me what happened. Because he now was in the Tennessee because he had a warrant and was arrested in Tennessee. All of that pressing that I had done, all the months of the police department, the DA, working whatever I could to just keep pressing and keep momentum here. All of that paid off in this one incident, and that was the assistant DA coming back and saying, all right, before we couldn't do anything. You can tell us all this stuff. We can look online and we can see all of this stuff that he is in the middle of in the great state of Alabama, but we don't have any anything.
Yeah,
he's clean here.
Yeah.
Well, once he got dirty here, that allowed the two DAs to talk. And that allowed the pressing that I had with my people, that allowed them to now communicate legally and professionally in our office. And I get a phone call after, hey, do you know where he's at? About a week, I know I said it 2 days later, but about a week later, the assistant DA calls me and says, hey, the DA in Alabama called me just now, and he offered up a great Christmas gift. What's that? Well, they're going to extradite him back to Alabama and hold him in jail till his trial, because he had worn out all of his contingencies. He now was on deck.
Yeah.
He had worn out all that.
All the appeals.
Yep. They're going to extradite him back to Alabama, where he'll sit without bond. And what I had learned in that whole magistrate fiasco is, if you're a murderer, you'll get $1 million bond. To be held without bond is you're either a flight risk or.
Did the girl survive that he did that to?
Yeah. So one of the things that one of the things I've learned through all of this is it's really hard for me, and I've had to re-look at the statement of, I know what you've gone through. I know what you're going through. That thing that people say in the midst of emotion. You know, if you lost your mom. Oh, I'm so sorry. I know how you're feeling. I don't know how you're feeling.
No, you don't. Yeah.
I don't.
I never say that to people.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying.
It's one of those little
It's a common.
clutch.
Yeah, it's a common empathic moment where people are trying to be there.
Trying to do something here.
Sure.
And so I just got really aware of, I don't know how you're feeling about Tori specifically. I don't know where was I going with this?
I asked how the woman was that he raped.
Yeah. So the one thing that somebody like him is for her to just go away. Because at that point, she's the witness. And if you've gone through those events, the amount of shame and the amount of just internal processing that the victim has to go through, you can't start recovering from that until you have closure. And if you don't have that closure, then it's just sitting there. And so with the rape and the strangulation and false imprisonment, let's just leave them here. With the rape sitting here, and for 3 years. This is just sitting there. It's just an open, festering sore.
And she can't close it.
She can't.
Yeah.
And the DA knew that they had a strong witness. And she knew that she wasn't crazy. So she never faltered.
Yeah.
She just stayed.
Sure.
It doesn't matter. Okay, fine.
Strong
I'm going to go
woman.
and do this.
Yeah.
I'm over here doing life.
Yeah.
Let me know when you need me.
Strong
Because
woman.
I'm going to do this. I still have this festering, unclosed wound. But I choose not to make it as festering.
Right.
There's still not closure. And so the long game now coming full circle. If he can find a beautiful girl.
Yes.
And they get pregnant.
Yes.
And they go to court and the defense attorney can go,
look at this
Your
nice
Honor,
upstanding man with his wife and baby.
your 12 jurors?
Yeah. God,
look at this.
That is the long game.
It's the long game.
Hey, it's Victor Sosa.
And man,
Jesus.
I figured that out early on in that dark spot. I figured out,
Jeez.
because one of the things I had to tell my son throughout all this is we were talking, and I said, here's the deal.
Oh my God.
This is a game. And I hate to say that because it's not a game, it's life.
No, but
it's real.
Yeah.
But
the manipulation game.
In order to win at this, the really, really hard part is I've got to assimilate and get to his level. I can do that. That's easy for me.
Mm-hmm.
That the addict and the manipulator and that person, that's there. I choose most days not to be there, but that's something that's just it's been cultivated.
Sure.
So I told Houston, I said, just know this. He is a cunning adversary, and in order to win like this, you have to think like him, and then look, and so
macro. I need to go
and then pull out,
yeah, exactly.
and then see the big picture, but always be be one step ahead of him, but you still have to be in that.
It's like a movie.
It really is. So I can't go, oh, you're just a street thug.
No, he's a Victor Sosa or a Hannibal Lecter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very smart, very intelligent.
Yeah.
May not be here, but he has this set of skills that really, really are. So
he's like an evil Liam Neeson.
Yeah. The long game is that
what it'll look like in court.
How it'll look like in court and how it'll play.
Holy moly.
And so that's why I kind of said...
I'm curious, was he kind to Lily? Did you experience that, or was she just an object of his
What do you know
manipulation?
about narcissists and children?
They're horrible parents, but they use them to show off. But then, yeah, exactly.
Yep.
But
they look beautiful.
Yeah, they're
and
good.
They're
for
usually
show
beautiful.
Off. Yeah.
But the moment that they're not
of service,
right? Then they're just another
prop.
Yes. Exactly. So exactly. You know, I'm impressed. I'm really impressed with your knowledge of these little small micro subjects. The gaslighting. I know it's not small, but it is definitely a newer.
Yeah, I wish it wasn't now as prevalent as it was. I wish it was, but unfortunately.
Yeah. So he goes away. What was the original question with her?
Oh, I was just curious to know if she got vindicated in that he...
So the vindication is that...
the first victim.
The first victim. She...
whose name is never mentioned, interestingly, in any of the articles.
Never mentioned, and it's very anonymous.
Which is good.
But with just enough... Digging, Terry was able to go directly and find her.
Oh, wow.
Didn't talk to her. We really knew where our boundaries were there. We did not want to mess anything up.
We can unearth anything.
Yeah, but she needed to know. Yeah. She needed to just...
That this is a real person that has... Yeah.
Who has real parents. Has a real...
And who likely had it happen, because in all of the manipulation and all the brainwashing, I'm sure there was still that part of her. It's like, well, maybe...
Let me look and see how similar she is to my daughter.
Sure.
Oh, gosh. I think that also was one of the things that Terry was trying to do was, I believe my daughter. I believe all this because I'm seeing it. But
Right.
It seems like it's repeated. Yeah. Well, you're missing the point that the repeater is...
so Terry's the one that found.
Terry's the one who found.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you said Tori. My bad.
No.
Their names are so similar.
I know. So he goes... Hope this got really loud because I leaned into the microphone. The DA... This is going to now close up a
Alabama or Tennessee?
The Tennessee... the DA in Alabama.
Yeah.
On the books, first-degree rape is maximum life. Minimum is like 12 or 16 years, maybe 6 years. But, right in that sweet spot, maybe 12, 16 years is kind of...
but they generally get out earlier than that. But yes, that is correct.
And through this whole thing... I'm engaged with my heart and everything, but I feel like a lot of times I was able to pull back and look at the big picture. And part of the big picture here is recognizing that, that's a harsh sentence. That's a pretty harsh sentence for somebody. Life in prison, rape. Unless, of course, you're the victim.
I don't know. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I am too. But unless you're the victim or the parent, the DA going into trial is set. DA and POS's attorney get together, plea bargain. Because at the end of the day, the court system is business. It's just business.
Sure.
And the plea deals that happen are done to facilitate speed through the system.
And I hate to say it, he's a good-looking white man.
Yep. So the DA comes to
and he has money.
his attorney and goes, here's what we want. We'll drop this charge. So you've got 2 felonies. We'll drop this one completely. So we'll deal with 2. This one will plead down to this. This one will plead to this. It's a pretty good deal. What say you? The attorney goes, let me go and talk to my client. I'll let you know. Thank you very much, your sir or ma'am. Goes back. I don't know this, but I can just think it through. It's fun to think through this. Mr. POS, as your counsel, this was brought onto my table. This offer is here. This can all go away very quickly and be managed. Here's the worst case scenario, and here's kind of a better case scenario. I say that you should take this as your legal counsel, who you're paying. In my head, I don't know this at all, but the fantasy is, and it's kind of, I processed it and gone, this is probably how it actually happened, is no.
Narcissist.
You know, and I know that I am innocent.
Oh, God.
And you know, and if you don't believe that, then blah, blah, blah. But you know, and I know that I'm innocent. So, no on the plea bargain. I'm willing to take my risk with the 12 because I know that I'm innocent. Narcissism. And so...
He's trying to gaslight the attorney. His own attorney.
Everything has worked.
Yeah.
You know, that he hasn't been caught yet.
Yeah.
In his whole... Yeah. Since 2014. Everything... It's been an inconvenience.
Yeah.
And there's been some consequences, but it's... You're saying we have a chance.
Yeah.
You know? So, somehow it went to a jury trial. And the jury trial, as you probably read, now we come back to...
There's not a lot of the... When you sent me the link that I went to look up, honestly, it was the same article over and over and over. There's not a lot of information.
It was that 2014 updated, essentially.
Yeah, there just wasn't a lot of information on any of it.
Yeah.
So...
He is definitely, if you look up POS...
I looked up his name.
An O and an S. His middle name's O.
Yeah, I looked up his full name for those, Matthew Zachary Spain, for those playing at home. And it talks about his conviction. But it doesn't, I mean, there's just not a lot. It's not a lot of detail.
If you go to the Alabama Department of Corrections, that's where you get some more information.
Okay.
And that was a kind of a aha moment. Let me see if I can... Did I close everything? So jury trial happens, and he is convicted of 2...
The rape?
He's convicted of rape. Somehow not convicted of either strangulation or false imprisonment. I think it was false imprisonment. No, it was strangulation. That was no contest.
Meaning he doesn't admit that he did it, but they're still... He
just didn't
punishment.
get convicted.
Yeah.
He didn't get... the jury could not find...
I thought no contest means I'm not saying if I did it or didn't.
Yeah, that wasn't the right thing. That was the horrible legal statement by me.
I thought that's what no, it's okay.
Dang it.
It's all good.
I watched Law & Order last night.
No. But regardless, he's convicted. What is the sentence?
So his conviction, and the headline is... Alabaster man convicted of life. Alabama man sentenced to life for rape conviction, something like that.
Yeah.
And you drill down. That's a great life,
Life.
rape.
Yeah.
What? So you drill down a little bit, maybe 2 paragraphs in, and there's a statement in there. And the way I read it was headline, big and bold. In the small print is the addendum to the headline. Okay, that's the headline to bring you here, but it could also be, how I read it was, it could also, even though it's life, it could also be this.
Not life.
Not life.
Well, because people, parole.
Yeah.
Whenever parole's on the table, it could be 5. Like, again, you might get life.
Yeah.
But then you come up for parole at whatever your window is, and then you could be granted parole. And it's, if he's a model prisoner, if he's, whatever.
All of that and
all the stuff.
So,
I believe in rehabilitation. I believe in education and prison system. I believe in all that stuff. But man, it's real tough. You hurt children. You hurt animals. You rape. And it's statistical that a narcissist, a male narcissist, there's very little rehabilitation. Yeah. It's just it's so hard to find where you are in things when it comes to
you.
Not even me, but my fellow human being. When it comes to the fact of the matter, I put rape as worse than murder in my mind. It seems.
With murder, you can get away. The victim.
Well, murder. The victim isn't suffering. The rest
not
of
suffering.
Their family certainly
done.
is, but them themselves. I mean, I know people who have been raped. I know people that have been kept for weekends and drugged and raped repeatedly and had to escape. I know these people. I know what it has done to them.
They're broken.
Fast forward 20 years, all the therapy in the world, they're still
Can't
part
take
of
that
it.
away.
Will never get back.
Yep.
Yeah. And some of these women are strong as hell, and a couple men.
Yep.
It's not just a girl thing.
Yep. But right there, I got you. Right in that part of your soul,
you'll never get it back.
I have it, and you will never get it back.
Right.
And that's the control.
So that's where that weird thing of anyway. Go on.
Well, that's a great closing statement for what you just said. Was how you button that up with murder and rape and. Yeah, plea bargain happens, and he says no.
And he goes, and so they throw the book at him or whatever.
So I read the headline, life in prison, and yet I read kind of the subheadline. It's like, So I sent an email to the DA in Alabama, and I said, they don't know who I am. They knew who I am peripherally, but not directly.
Sure.
I said, hi, my name is, and this is who I am, and this is why I'm contacting you. Can you please explain something? I read the headline, also read the body of the thing. I'm a little confused. It says life here, but it says something, I'm interpreting something else here. She writes me a very simple Friday afternoon email, and it is, I'm not really sure how you're getting to that assumption, but life in prison is life in prison. He will not be available for parole. He's in life. Like no parole.
So there's no parole. He got life without parole. So
yeah.
Lily,
so that was closure.
That was closure on that. But now there was still of all that horrifying story.
Yeah. We're still not over.
Still one bit left.
So we get a phone call. She is coming back. She is starting to have clarity, and she's starting to. It took a while for her to get off of the manipulation that she had been in. And so it took a while for her to unlove and to unforgive him. But when she finally did, then she crossed over, and there was clarity, there was decision making, and there was emotional spots, but it was a positive forward build. We get a phone call at 4 a.m, January 13th, Friday the 13th, and it's Tori, and she's in hysterics, and she said something's wrong with Lily, and so we jump in the car. I have a little Mini Cooper. Speeding, I can get to her house in about 5 minutes. I'm pretty sure I got there in about 2 minutes. And when we pulled in and turned the corner onto our street, there was 3 fire trucks, 2 ambulances, every single third shift cop and every single third shift sheriff. It was just a blaze of blue on the street. And so we
take your time.
Hadn't thought about a couple of these details in a while. We pull in, and there's a cop kind of. It's 4 a.m, so there's not a crowd. It's just internal. But now we're new to the scene, so they try to hold us back, and it's like, no, that's our daughter. We're going there. So they let us in, and Tori is sitting there in absolute shock. They have Lily in the...
Take your time.
They have Lily in the ambulance, and they are working on her. And while that's being done, there's police in Tori's house doing precursory evidence gathering and securing the scene. And so they work on Lily in the ambulance for, I guess about, I think it's like 10 or 15 minutes. And then the head, the sergeant on shift came up to us and said, we're going to Williamson Medical. Just jump in behind us and follow.
How old is Lily?
Lily is, she's born in September, so she's, 6 months? September, October, November, December, January, 5 months. 5 months old. And so we follow the ambulance to Williamson Medical. And
now, just really quick, because you said secure the scene, and I think that's a precaution that police officers, when a child is in jeopardy, they don't know what's going on. Yep. They want to make sure there hasn't been some sort of abuse or whatever, or foul play or whatnot. So that's just part of the rigmarole.
Yeah. And it's, again, Susan, it's really, really interesting talking through this with you, because you just said a couple of key words that your processing right now is exactly where my head is in that moment, but also currently, and that is the securing of the scene. As police or as investigators, they have to take it. Any other time, it's the presumed innocence. With a person that has no voice,
right,
or has no voice,
no power,
they have to go and approach it from this angle and clear you. So they've got to. I don't think it's legally right, and I don't think legally it has a. I'm not sure how it is legally, but processing it. That's the only way that I can really truly understand the processing is baby was alive, baby's not alive. What happened to make baby not alive? So this is an innocent child. Baby didn't provoke something. So now we've got to clear it back to innocence. And the trouble with that is by doing that, it makes everyone in line feel like a criminal. It makes Tori feel like she's a criminal and feels like at any moment the hand of the law is going to come down. And
she's already not in a great state.
She's not in a great state.
She's just been through this entire process.
She's just buoying to the surface right now.
Mm-hmm.
She's just starting to become present.
So you're all in this heightened, beside the fact that somebody you love is hurting and is potentially going to die, you're all also have the eyes of the law on you.
Yeah. And so here's the other unique aspect of this. Nothing's unique, but to us it's unique. The unique aspect of this is in 20 minutes, Tori went from being a what's the defender and a
protector?
No, in legal you have the defense team and the
prosecution.
Yeah, she went from being on the prosecutory line to now being investigated and being defensive, having to be defensive.
Mm-hmm.
And that line of
what a mind fuck.
It's a mind fuck. And so as I tend to in crisis situation, part of it's being in the studio and having scenarios and having systems in place where there's contingencies. And so in a studio setting, you've got $5,000 on the floor of musicians, and you have a computer that goes down.
Yeah,
that's not unique. But how do you address it to keep momentum? You're going to have a little downtime.
You have to stay clear and calm.
Yeah,
like in the military.
I really do process things in a crisis in a very organized manner. I'll crash down here later. But that's my role. I feel like I do that really good.
It's a good father role.
Yeah, and so.
So they've got Lily in the ambulance.
They have Lily in the ambulance. We're going to take her to Williamson Medical.
Are they letting Tori also come to the hospital?
But they're not letting her get in the ambulance, so she has to ride with us. So it's Terry, Tori, and I.
Awful.
Because the ambulance had the 2 EMTs and either the sergeant or the detective.
And that's to protect Lily, which in the grand scheme of things is understandable, but still a mess.
It's a mess. Yeah.
Because there is a lot of really...
I get it.
Yeah.
I totally
intellectually it's understandable, but the feeling that Tori must have been having watching her baby be put into an ambulance and she can't be there with that baby is
beyond
mind-boggling.
That whole mind fuck of going from
you just put this asshole in jail.
And you've got
footage.
And also you now are domestic abuse, so you have the DA and you have the detectives who are now questioning you because they want to address this criminal that's in their county. And so you have her answering questions not reluctantly talking to the law in terms of the domestic abuse. And
but
they
treat you as if you're...
They just went away.
Oh.
They just went poof.
What do you mean? Wait, I guess I'm confused.
Yeah.
At this point, in the moment, stay in the moment for a second. Lily's being worked on. Does it seem like there's been foul play, or is that just protocol?
It's protocol.
Okay.
It's protocol.
Got it.
So 420.
So the questions being asked of her are simply part of the gist of something is wrong with the baby. There's a mother present, and this is what we do in those scenarios.
And let's address this. And this can all be taken care of.
Okay, got it.
Here's baby, take care of baby.
So now we're on the way to the hospital.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're on the way to hospital. They work on it. We're in the waiting room. They work on her for another...
Do they have any idea what's wrong?
Tori woke up, and she sleeps with Lily in their bed. You know what? I'm not sure how much I want to...
Okay. No worries.
That's okay.
That's okay. No,
there's a lot of stuff, but there's stuff that...
Something was wrong.
She
called 911.
Yeah, so Tori woke up, and I think it was like a normal feeding time for Tori and Lily, and saw that there was foam around her mouth and that she was unresponsive.
Okay.
So she instantly called 911. They talked her through a couple things. She did some compression, chest compression. Hung up, called us. Ambulance shows up. Police show up. First responders show up. They had just gotten Lily in the ambulance. We show up. Now we are going to the ER.
Right.
We go to ER, and they continue to work on her. We're in the waiting room. Triage nurse comes in, gives us just an update of we're doing everything we can. And quite honestly, I know, I don't look at my clock, but I know I have a sense of time, and I know that this is not going to turn out well. because they had her at the house in the ambulance for 15 minutes. They can't stabilize her, so they're getting, it's just the timing, the timing of everything and the timeline. So she's pronounced dead at like 4:40 or something like that. And then we're kind of all right now, presently, fast forward to now, we're all just kind of trying to wake up from it. If you're playing along at home and you have paid attention to the POS chapters, you can equate them to, what did he do? He was already in prison. He was already in jail. He was waiting. He was in a holding tank. And so, not to give him a pass, but the pass is that, not the pass, but the talking point is that he had nothing to do with Lily's passing. Lily, the coroner report came back and it was SIDS.
Yeah.
Just plain and simple. They couldn't.
It happens.
All foul play was off the table. And, and I said it earlier, and I forgot, so I just left it right there. The POS, as much as I have disdain in my heart for this person and his involvement in just another aspect of shit, is I don't wish this on anybody.
No, of course not.
And this is a person who absolutely wanted this guy to, here, let me give you a push.
Yeah,
let me give you a push over the bridge. Sure. Jump, please jump.
Yeah, but that's not an innocent.
Yeah.
That's somebody that's, repetitively been a dick,
but still.
And no parent, no matter how horrible the parent is, to lose a child is, from what I understand, I can't quite possibly wrap my head around it, but from what I understand of it, it just shouldn't happen. It's just not the normal way of things. Mm-hmm. Parents die, children grow, children have children, they become the parent, they die, children, It's not supposed to be that the children die.
Yep. Just as this is kind of an end piece there, because everything goes away. Everything went away when he was in Alabama. The closure there is that he had to have the warden or the sheriff. It wasn't even in prison yet. He had to have the sheriff come into his holding cell and tell him that
it's probably worse than life imprisonment, even to a narcissist.
I want so badly to find joy in that, and I can't. Yeah. There's something I could play
It's
with.
very human of you to want to find that pleasure in his pain, but it's at the expense of Lily. So you can't.
Yeah.
Because you're a human being. So, and I would also argue that as much as you can find hatred toward someone, unless you give into that hate fully and become hateful yourself, you will always still have a part of you that is compassionate.
Yeah.
And you won't lose that. You know what I mean? So that compassion supersedes the grandiosity, is that a word? The
grandiosity.
Grandiosity. The grandiosity of the feeling of hatred toward this other person. Lily had nothing to do with it. She was just an innocent person that came into the world.
In a fucked up situation, but still.
And she was the tie that bound these two people, and she would have, depending on your belief system, and maybe that was her journey. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how the universe works.
Well, here's how the universe works for me is POS, Tori.
Yeah.
Lily.
Yeah.
Lily's gone. Guess what?
Gone. No more. Yeah. Well,
there's no connector there.
There's no connector, which is like
it's
hard to say that, to wrap your head around what that means, but
Yeah. there's a sense of closure right there.
Yeah.
In that relationship.
And it's a mess. It's a mess, and there's no getting around it. It's just a horrible, horrible thing.
Yeah.
Wherever she is, which I believe she would be everywhere,
Yep.
because that's my belief system,
Yep.
is that she is now a part of all things. It won't help Tori any, because no parent should lose a child. You almost lost your child to that man.
Yep.
Because that was the road it was going down, by the way.
Yeah.
In all likelihood, she wouldn't have survived. He would have kept escalating.
Yep.
And one of them or both of them would have had to go.
So here's the one of the things that, as I've been trying to be a father, be a husband, be present, work through my emotions, be under a really dark cloud for a while. One of the
But you stayed sober, by the way. I'd like to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Did you not?
No, I did.
Well, that's a hell of... I mean, that's...
It is.
I'd like to acknowledge that. That's a huge deal.
Because
a lot of people wouldn't have, so...
Yeah, would have gotten a pass, too, because of it.
Pass or no pass, you didn't.
Yeah.
You didn't do it, so...
Yeah.
David Hall, what a story. What an experience. I really appreciate your candor and coming on the show and talking about everything.
I said this coming in. I really didn't. I started to get a little bit of anxiousness about this, but it calmed me because we have a relationship. We have a friendship that is one of those kind of special, like we won't talk for 6 months or a year, and then one of us will pop and it's good.
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah.
We're good. And then moving on again.
Yeah.
So it was comfortable, but also we've just gone through so much that there's some things that just couldn't be avoided, just can't be avoided. It's just life. But there's also some things that can be avoided. And I don't know if I addressed any of the solutions in this.
Some things don't need solutions. Sometimes a story just needs to be told, and you just have to get out of its way.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information. And going into this, with you coming over here, I read about him and what he was incarcerated for, and I knew that Lily had passed, but I didn't know any of the details. Yeah. And just to meet you where you are and to hear the story of it all unfold, there are going to be people listening that this is going to change their life, because they're going to hopefully get out of something that's hurtful to them. And so that's humongous. And that's the beauty and the gift that Lily leaves. That's the beauty and the gift that, Tori's experience with him. And that's the gift and the beauty of the fact that you are willing to be here and to be honest and vulnerable and all that. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is this when we say goodbye?
It is.
Now?
We can.
Let's just keep it on.
Okay.
So.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for
really
listening. And as always, I'll put links on heyhumanpodcast.com for all sorts of things that we've talked about, books and music and all that good stuff. But most especially, I'm going to put some stuff on there about how to get out of a bad situation. So if you or someone you love is being hurt, or you suspect that there's something going on that is not good, those numbers will be there for you to reach out to. Okay? Be good to yourselves. Lots of love.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.